Okay, I guess the first thing you want to hear about is bin Laden, okay? So we'll do that because it's supposedly the biggest piece of news that we've got right now. So the first question, I think Richard Serrett was on last night, and they asked me on the show what I thought about the scene about bin Laden. You know, they killed him in Pakistan, then they flew him to Afghanistan, then they dropped him in the ocean. And they even dropped him in the ocean before the DNA results came back. They didn't come back till 4 o'clock today. So this is the script. And they asked me last night, what do you think about this, all the bin Laden and what happened? And I said, well, if you believe that, you'll buy my watch.
Well, you believe the birth certificate?
Yes, you will. Oh, I don't even care about the birth certificate. His grandmother, years ago, 3-4 years ago, said, I was there when he was born. Of course, he was born in Kenya. 2 days later, she died. But, of course, he was born in Kenya, so that's another script. Oh, poor old Arnie Schwarzenegger couldn't run for president because he was a foreigner. So he must be saying, what the hell? You know, what's going on? So anyway, yeah, so about the bin Laden thing, and the Americans are dancing in the streets, so they say. 50% of them, or maybe 60%, are not, because they're thinking the same as I'm thinking. Why would he have been dropped in the sea? They said because nobody would accept his body. However, those people who wouldn't accept his body are now, they want vengeance. They're going to get vengeance for doing away with him. But wouldn't they have accepted his body then? Yeah. Come on. If you're expecting logic from this script, forget about it. And of course, they didn't get the results of the DNA. Supposedly, we will never see it. And there could have been other reasons if it indeed happened. There could be other reasons for dropping him in the drink. It wasn't his body, or it was his body, but it had been in the deep freeze so long it just turned to mush. Or his body was so damaged and in such a sad state from tortures and whatever that they didn't want anyone to see it. But either way, it doesn't matter. It does not matter whether he died, he didn't die, how he died, who killed him. None of this matters because he and the Arabs had nothing to do with 9/11. So who gives a damn when or how or where he died or if? It doesn't matter. It's all based on the big lie that he was a mastermind of 9/11. What utter drivel. Drivel. You can't dignify it with anything but drivel. Now everybody's talking about Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda. Let me tell you what Al-Qaeda is. Al-Qaeda was a computer base. When bin Laden was leading the Afghanis against Russia and helping the U.S. Give Russia its own Vietnam, he and the CIA met on that computer base. Al-Qaeda means the base. That's it. So the CIA, of course, he was one of their assets. The bin Laden family have been in business with the Bush family for decades. His brothers, the whole family. They were flown out of the United States, the whole family, the day after 9/11 when not one other plane was allowed in the sky. They were all flown out. They're in business with the Bushes. Huge construction company. Oh, but what do they say? That all the hijackers on the planes that went through the tower were Saudis. Had their pictures up the next day. So even though the Saudis are their friends, okay, they made these hijackers Saudis. They were already setting up their next enemy. The United States has a habit of setting up its next enemy. China's carrying all the American debt. They're building China up now. We're buying cheap crap, a lot of it contaminated. Our jobs are all gone. This is a corporate-ruled planet. Please understand that. It's not about loyalty or your country or your nation or anything. It's about this whole thing that's going on is, first of all, to save the most crooked money system on the globe. We are being drained. All our assets are being taken over globally by a banking system that is crooked. I'm with the Committee on Monetary and Economic Reform for years and years. If you don't understand the principle that a private group is printing the money for every nation on this globe, and when they print it, they charge each government interest. This is what's killing and draining this planet of its life's blood. Now, after the huge fiasco, where one congressman said, let it fail. Let's go back to each government producing its own money, printing its money free of interest. Lincoln did it. And all kinds of presidents, of course, I told you, were assassinated because they wanted to put the money back in the public hands with no interest on it. And they're trying to save, this is all going on trying to save that crooked system. It depends on wars. It has to depopulate because the system itself cannot support a normal population on the earth. So they have to blame the population, say it's their fault, there's too many. I could put the whole, well, not myself, but the whole population on this earth now would fit onto Rhode Island. Yes, shoulder to shoulder, but it would fit. And the people who are saying we have to depopulate are the same people who run this crooked money system. That's the only way it can keep on going. They'll do anything to save it. They will have wars, depressions, killing as many as they can, grabbing resources. So it's nothing to do with anything that's got any humanity in it. It's about saving this system. So that's what Al-Qaeda, and they're still Al-Qaeda. The Mujahideen, which fought, Bin Laden's people, the Mujahideen, which fought with the Americans and the Afghanis to get out the Russians, now they've become the Taliban. Now they're bad. Same with the Saudis. The Saudis are good when it comes to business, but then they were the ones named that were on the planes. Number one, the planes there was nobody on the planes. They were done by satellite. They were guided by satellite. It was like the Indian fakir, you know, everybody was looking up at the planes. And while they were looking up at the planes, buildings 5 and 6 were detonated. The bombs in 5 and 6 were detonated. You can see it at the bottom while everyone was looking up. Second plane came through, buildings 5 and 6, which had already been robbed. All the files from the SEC were taken the night before, and the gold or whatever was in the vault the night before. And as people watched up at the second plane, these 2 buildings were exploded. The bombs were set off exactly when the second plane went through. So that's what happened there. And the people who know that, there's 3 or 4 now that are hiding out in South America. Yes, they know that. And FEMA was in the day before, September 11, they were in on the 10th. They took all that stuff out with trucks the night before. There's tunnels, you could just go in, drive it all out, no big deal. And who made, and so we have to do another investigation now, because I'll be doing a 9/11 class. I do one every term, and it is on video, but I will be doing one this term about buildings 5 and 6, and it won't be the usual forensic investigation. We've done over and over and over and over DVDs on the forensics, in other words, the method, how it was done. now let's finish the investigation. Any normal police investigation after a killing or any kind of massacre, 3,000, yes. Who benefits? Who had the means? Who had the opportunity? Not one 9/11 investigation has considered that. That's the other half of the investigation, or it isn't one. Okay, we know. It's like finding the knife or the gun at the murder scene. Okay, we know how. And then saying, okay, that's the end of it. Let's go home. Investigation over. We know how. But nonsense. Nonsense. So now the people who ran this scam are getting worried because too many people are getting too close to the truth. Who did it? Who made the money on it? Who's got all the SEC records? Who did all the put options? Who made the billions on 3,000 deaths? Nobody wants to do that because they'll be threatened immediately. They'll have to leave. So that's the next part of the investigation we have to concern ourselves with. And they know that. So that's why Bin Laden, Al-Qaeda. Oh, and the second thing, isn't it wonderful now? Those people who didn't want his body, no, the hero, his own people, didn't want the body, but they want vengeance. Another illogical mock-up. So now they can ratchet up the whole security. I don't go through airports. I don't care, ships, buses, whatever. I won't take a plane because it's very cancer-causing. Businessmen will have cancers like you wouldn't believe. So, and of course, the guy that owns all these scanning machines is Chertoff, who was head of the Homeland Security. Business is business. It's a corporately run world. And governments do what the corporations tell them. That used to be called fascism. It's still fascism. They bombed Gaddafi again. About 10 years ago, they bombed his house and killed his granddaughter in the crib. This time, I heard it 2 nights ago, they killed his son and his 3 grandchildren. And then I never heard another word. So getting Bin Laden, they have to do something. You know, the weapons of mass distraction have to be brought out. So now they're using poor old Bin Laden because there's a big cover-up on what actually happened to Gaddafi's family. And you have to remember that the Americans are no longer have a constitution as they had when they started up. And they've bombed 27 countries since World War II. 27 countries. So there you have it. And I haven't heard another word about Gaddafi's family at all. But he's not going to leave till the last bullet, trust me, because they've been so awful to him. And they're using DU, of course, in Libya. They are covering that whole area with DU. That will do away with the population. They'll all get raging cancers, and that'll be that. And of course, just apropos of what we're talking about today, Gaddafi, now this is in 2009. I've got it here. Gaddafi at the UN on September 23rd stated, swine flu is the result of military war labs experiments. They don't like him for that either. He's blowing the whistle, you know, on these things they're doing. So they have good reason not to like Gaddafi. So the radioactive dust is falling on Tokyo, and our radiation has gone up 9% here. If you have a Geiger counter, you can check on that. And on May the 8th, I think, they said on Richard Syrett they're having Dr. Apsley on about the radiation. So Sunday, May the 8th, you might want to listen to that at 11 p.m. They promised to have him on. They were going to have him on last night, but the Bin Laden story just knocked everything off the news, the papers. It was just the biggest story. Oh, here's another little article, because we'll be talking about this today. They've just found out that the chimps who are tested with various drugs and things And they get depressed and start to mutilate themselves, you know, like the kids who cut themselves. Well, anybody, chimp, whatever, who is tormented, and the psychiatric drugs and the testing, yes, even the chimp will get depressed, okay? And of course the vaccine makers get away with murder, literally, and they pay off the courts, the judges, what have you. And whenever there's a massacre or something awful happens, some guy with a gun or whatever, they never open the medical file. The big pharma will not allow you to see what that person has been on, or is coming off of. Never. The medical file is never open because of big pharma. They don't want you to know that. And they're still, it's testing people. We're all guinea pigs. That's all they do. And they get a lot of money for doing it. So now they've got another vaccine. Who? There's a nice title. It's on the net called Who Murdered Africa, meaning who. And now they have another vaccine to stop fertility. However, what else it does to you, they will not say. The side effects. They're just testing everybody. We are all guinea pigs. They come out with all these things. It's disgusting. Here's the Finnish health minister a while ago. I saved this a few months ago. This woman said, Finland, Dr. Keldy was her name, and she said the vaccines are meant for population reduction. Yes, they are. They are. That's what they're for. Then I did an article, remember SARS? I did an article on SARS back in, I can't even see the date on this. Anyway, I was backed up. I had references from 2 specialists, 2 of them in Toronto. I took it down to the SARS Commission. The article was already out in the paper. I took it down. I had a bunch of them, and all the radio stations were there. And the SARS Commission, another joke, okay? So I took it there. I put it on every media table. They watched me, and then they came up to me and said, you have to take these out, and you have to leave now. So I said, I'm not leaving. These are facts. It's already out in the paper, not your papers, but the one I work for, Discourse and Disclosure. So I took it back in and I handed it out. But of course, not one of the media was allowed to use it. So then I have another, this is another free paper, Free Press. This is the Rock Creek Free Press from 2009. Vaccines are biological weapons. Yes, they are. Yes, they've always killed people. They have never saved anybody. No one. All right? Vaccines are biological weapons. The WHO can make vaccines mandatory. Yes, they can. And the papers you've got down there today tell you why, okay? If you look at pages 10 and 11, you will see why they're allowed to do that. And they work with Big Pharma. WHO works with all the drug companies. And here's another little piece. Cancer link to a vaccine you probably had as a child. This is not going to be a happy day here because a lot of people here may have gotten the polio vaccine. I didn't because I was out of the country at the time, and my kids didn't because I wouldn't allow it. And that was a long time ago. So there's 60 lab studies confirming this. It's sad news, but there it is, okay? And a lot of them were made at Merck. George Bush, of course, is involved in the stocks of Merck. And, oh yes. When we get into the history of the vaccines, you will realize they have never saved one person. In fact, it's been the opposite. And now about the AIDS. I have this document here from 1969 when, and it was given to me by Donald Scott years and years ago. They investigated this. And it was a hearing before a subcommittee of the Committee of Appropriations, U.S. House of Representatives. And this group asked for the funding to invent a virus that no one's immune system could defend against, and they got the funding. AIDS was a man-made virus, yes. And that's the committee. Those are the documents from when they asked for that money. So when the WHO and the CDC want to start, pandemic, people have to live in constant fear now. Terrorism, pandemics, God, I don't know what next we're going to have to worry about. So the best thing is to realize it's all a big show. Very bad actors. I mean, they can't even act properly. I mean, it's so clumsily done. And this is what people have to go through now. So just let it brush off. So these little tidbits you've got on page 11 here, the WHO has the ability to say, they can pick any virus and say it's a pandemic because they changed the rules about pandemics. Pandemics no longer need to be killing off thousands. All they need to say it's a pandemic is that it's a lot of infections. They don't care if you get over it or you don't. As long as it's a lot of infections, they can do this. You've got it on page 11 there. They changed the criteria. So instead of being widespread death, it only has to be widespread infections. Then, this is what happens. As soon as they declare a pandemic, and the big pharma is backing them, they can put out all the untested vaccines they want. And if something dreadful happens when you get them, they're not liable. And you've got the other paper down there, the first page. They've now made a law in the United States that even children who have suffered, who are damaged from vaccines, who have autism, who are crippled, whatever, they cannot sue any drug company. They have no recourse anymore. Even if the child is dead, crippled, doesn't matter. The courts have been bribed by Big Pharma to end that whole thing, so there's no recourse anymore, even if you have a dead child. So that's what they have done. So as I said, these people are not about saving anybody's life. They are about making money on testing you, getting paid money while you might possibly die, and you have no recourse to sue them for anything. Now, I might as well show you this. I'm also going to, you might want to get this from me. Here it is. Right here, I haven't got enough papers to do this, but if anyone wants this, all these pages, I can just get them copied. Well, this gives you the name of the 100 or more bioweapons experts who have died, how they died, and how, when, why, where. All of these people working on these bioweapons, as soon as they've done their job, they're killed off. Now, if anyone wants this, they can put their name on a list later. And it's just a toonie. So if you want to leave me a toonie and put your name on the list, I'll bring them next week, okay? This is the complete list, and it's added to every day. This list is going on. And so if you want that, just get in touch with me with the toonie. Now, if I can see this, I don't know what I did with my glasses. Oh yeah, I do, they're over here. I'm just going to give you a little piece of information to let you know how this goes. And nobody has time to investigate all this, except maybe retired people or people that have done what I've done all my life. This is just a sample here. I typed up this little sample. Immune experts, bioscientists, bioweapons designers being killed off. Ebola expert on the bridge. Schwartz, DNA sequencing, dead on a bridge. Wiley, 19 scientists since November 12, 2006. 3 prominent Israeli scientists, plane crash. Scientists working on a doomsday version of smallpox died in Australia. 5 Israeli microbiologists die on the way to Russia. Biovaccine weapons designers stabbed, San Francisco. More biologists dead. Astrobiological biologist struck by car while jogging. Spanish flu expert killed, bringing back viruses. I told you, I was at a meeting at this university about 10 years ago, very small meeting. I forget now who told me about it. And the leader of this expedition up to Norway, Finland, wherever, they dug up the bodies in ice from the 1918 flu. And of course, they took tissue from these bodies. One group actually mailed it in the mail back to the States. The 1918 flu tissue. Okay, and now the reason, and I said there, I said, why the hell would anybody want to do that? Leave them in the ice. I mean, they'll be in the ice until, maybe May 21, when we all supposed to go, when the earth melts or whatever the hell it's supposed to do. But I said, why are you getting this? You know the reason they gave me? Well, just so we'll know what to do if it happens again. That's the reasoning I got, all right? So they all went up there to dig this stuff up. Now, some of those people are already not with us anymore, okay? See, Spanish flu expert killed, bringing back viruses for 1918 flu. So where did his little package go, all right? And here's a nice little article. The Idaho Observer, and the editor of that got a very fast-acting cancer, and he didn't know about it, but maybe 3 months after he knew about it, he was gone. Okay? And he wrote one of these articles. Vaccine may be more dangerous than the swine flu. See, flu or no flu. The WHO, the CDC, set to launch swine flu pandemic. That's the kind of stuff he wrote. So you either meet with a happy accident or something else happens to you. So what we're going to do now is go through the history of vaccines. Nobody ever talks about how they started, what they do, and why they make people so sick and kill them, actually. So we'll just start. In the early 1700s, okay, they had this bright idea. Now, you've seen those films and Huckleberry Finn and all that, when 2 kids, let's be blood brothers, you know, they cut their hands and they put them together, you know, now we're blood brothers. That's what they did in the first vaccines. In the 1700s, thinking it would work, okay, they mixed the blood of a plague victim or a smallpox survivor with the blood of an untested person, okay, hoping, in other words, they put cuts in their arms and then they held the cuts together. They didn't have any needles then, so this is what they did. And they were hoping that it would work. So now, did it work? Let me just read you this on a tombstone. In 1788, this was on a tombstone, and it was in the Lancet. Here, I'm quoting it. In memory of Peleg, son of Thomas and Mary Conklin, who died of the smallpox by inoculation. January 27, 1788, age 17. So he obviously was one of these people that was cut, and so right on the tombstone. So the Lancet in 1996 had a photograph of the tombstone, and it was called an old malpractice claim. So we're looking at testing with this first idea and people dying of it. There was no success. Now, we come along to 1837. And, oh, sorry, not 1837. Got that wrong. 1796. Edward Jenner. You've all heard his name. Edward Jenner. Now, he had another idea. He pierced the skin, it doesn't say needle, he pierced the skin with a cowpox tainted instrument. Whatever that instrument was. Could have been an old darning needle or something. He pierced the skin with it and thought that that was going to work, okay? To guard against smallpox, that didn't work because nothing was known about viruses then. Even when they discovered antibiotics don't work with viruses. Viruses are old, billions of years old, and it's a virus. So they knew nothing about viruses until much later with Pasteur, okay? So that didn't work. And so in 1837, now remember, it didn't work. 1837 to 39, Jenner, by doing this, he kept doing this, Jenner increased the smallpox to an epidemic of 23,000 dead. It was never epidemic, okay? So in that, he gets 23,000 dead from piercing the skin with whatever he was doing, all right? There is nothing in vaccine history that ever says it saved anybody. In fact, when we get to the end of this, it'll be quite appalling because they've reached the peak now. So, and then after he did that, in 1853, like I say, we'll never learn. We don't learn, so we are special ed. In 1853, it was compulsory vaccinations in England. Oh, what a record. Okay, compulsory vaccination. Wow. There you go. Right? Now, between 1870 and 72, 2 years, all right? 44,480 vaccinated people died. Ones who weren't vaccinated survived. 480 died. And they had to take it, it was compulsory. Okay? Well, remember around this time, too. Remember, around this time, the medical profession didn't even wash their hands. Women, the midwives were got rid of when they burnt them all at the stake and called them witches early on. Every healer in a village was called a witch, burnt at the stake, 3 million, so that men could take over the medical thing. So then, in the Victorian era, women were scared to death when they were pregnant. They knew they'd probably die. So they'd go into the hospital and they would die of infection. So when Semmelweis, whom they persecuted till his dying day, he said to them, wait a minute, you can't come from a cadaver in an autopsy room and take those hands into a woman's room and while she's giving birth, put those same hands into the birth canal. They were doing that. The Greeks, the Romans, knew much better than these Victorian doctors. So women were dying in the droves when they didn't have a midwife. The midwife knew enough to boil things, wash your hands, whatever. No, they were that stupid. So even Semmelweis, who, you know, the germ theory came along later, but it was common sense. Wash your hands. They don't even do it today. I've seen articles in the paper where they've caught them not washing their hands. So that's what they were doing. So Semmelweis said, you can't do that anymore. Well, they persecuted him. They drove him till he died, till his dying day. That's how stupid they were. And of course, until Harvey, they didn't even think that blood circulated. Doctors did not know blood circulated until the middle of the 18th century, Harvey. They thought when you sat in a chair, the blood all sank where you sat, like you were dead. That's what happens when you're dead. The blood just goes to the lowest part of the body and you start turning blue and green. No, they didn't know blood even circulated. And they didn't once think of the Greek Hippocrates, first do no harm. They don't even think of that today. First, do no harm. That's the first thing. So anyway, these all died, all right? And between, let me think now, and the people at the time fought the vaccine, just like we're doing now. They fought the vaccine. Okay? That was 1870, 72, around the same time they were putting their filthy hands up into a birth canal, all right? Now, in 1882, a doctor named Robert Koch, I think it was Koch or whatever, Robert Koch, then, he developed the germ theory, and Pasteur followed it up and proved that there were germs, okay? However, the one thing they didn't realize, because they didn't know enough, there are germs all over the place. But if your immune system is working, you don't get anything from it. There's germs everywhere. They didn't know that then. So Pasteur, of course, the whole thing was about the germ, not about your immune system. They didn't have a clue. So in 1882, that's what happened then. And of course, germs can only invade when your immune system is weak. But they didn't know that. They thought it was all the fault of the germs. Okay, so let's get the germs, all right? And then in 1910, now here's a really good one. Remember, it's still killing people. In 1910, now get this, 8 million people in the Philippines, all right? 95% of the population were given, now this is what they were given. 8 million were given 24,500,000 doses of smallpox vaccine. That is 3 doses plus for each person. 3, all right? What happened? They had the worst smallpox epidemic in history. And 95% of the people were inoculated. So of course it was from the vaccines. Of course. They did that in the Philippines, okay, 1910. That's why I'm calling it murder in the first. Murder in the first degree is not like hitting someone in a rage, okay? There's second degree, then there's manslaughter. Murder in the first means you plan it, you are going to profit from it, and you do it. That's called murder in the first. If you don't plan it and you get in a fight or something, I know you're going to the meeting, Tom, it's manslaughter, okay? But this is murder in the first. It's planned, it's for gain. It's planned and it's for gain. That's murder in the first, all right? And that's what they did there. In 1948, it took this long. Now remember, since in 1948, all right, the compulsory vaccination was ended. Look how long it took. Look. 100 years. Okay? Compulsory ended. God knows how many people gave their lives fighting that until it stopped. 100 years of having to be vaccinated, all right? Now, here's another fact you might want to know. Prior to the 50s, in other words, 1950s, paralytic polio was a scourge in England, Wales, and France. Okay? And in America, more than 33,000 died or were crippled. Then, a very strange thing happened. It just ended. The mortality from the polio ended. People were not getting crippled. Suddenly, it was just like it just went away. All right? It naturally went away. Now, what happened after that? Here we go. Now we're getting into our era. Between 1956 and 66, they put out a polio vaccine after it had died down, all right? And the polio erupted to the degree that it had been in the 1920s. It was already going, was already almost gone. Then they put out the polio vaccine between 56 and 66. And the whole thing erupted again and went right back to the huge figures in the 1920s. What does that tell you? So, 1956, 66. And how many kids? I don't know how old people are here. So they put out the vaccine. Polio erupts again. There. Everyone was afraid again. The vaccines were out. Okay? Now, coming up to this, from 1954, 53, 54, say that 1 year. Now, what happened in that 1 year and resulting in this, okay? Jonas Salk, the scientist, thought he was figuring something out. So what he did was, he said, this is what we'll do. We'll grow the polio viruses in the lab. We kill them. We grow them, we kill them. And then we inject the dead viruses into healthy children. And when we do that, he said, the dead viruses will not reproduce. The immune system would detect that the virus is in there and produce antibodies for the live ones that come along in the future. Okay? This is what he said. He said his trials were successful. His trials were successful. And then what they were going to do, I think it was on the anniversary of Roosevelt's birthday, because he had polio himself. They said, what we'll do is, on that day, we are going to have mass inoculations. We are going to have inoculations everywhere. Now, right after, on the verge of this mass inoculation, Bernice Eddy, we'll just put his name here, Bernice Eddy of the NIH, the National Institute for Health, okay, she said, wait a minute, let's test it. Before we have this mass inoculation, let's test it. Oh, what a novel idea. Okay, so she tested it on her monkeys. They all were crippled. Some were dying. So she called up, gave the alarm. She said, look, we can't do this. The monkeys are all crippled and some of them are dying. So what happened? There was a doctor by the name of Ochsner down in New Orleans, okay? And he was another arrogant bastard. And he said, nonsense, they're gonna work. And to prove they're gonna work, you know what? I'm giving them to my grandson, okay, and my granddaughter, to prove to you that these vaccines work. Meantime, there was Bernice Eddy in her lab with her monkeys all crippled and dying. So he gave them the vaccine. Yep, his own grandchildren, okay. And because he did that, that he was doing that, everybody believed him and the other group of arrogant doctors that followed him. So they had the mass inoculation. But it didn't get very far because immediately the kids were being crippled and dying with this mass inoculation. And his own grandson died and his granddaughter was crippled. Okay? Dr. Ochsner. Proving that the vaccine, in spite of what Bernice Eddy warned, he went ahead, okay? So after that, now wait till I tell you what happened to her. Bernice Eddy was demoted to the influenza department. Not so much as a thank you. Yep, demoted. Never quoted or heard from again. This is how they are today. They are like this today, okay? That's what, so then what did they do? Now, just wait. They decided they would try another type of thing with the same vaccine. And this time it was a Dr. Sabin, okay? He said, this is what I'm going to do, all right? He, instead of dead virus, he inserted very weak virus. Weak little buggers, okay? Inserted them. This was his theory now. This is all theories. These are theories we're working with now, all right? So he said it would be safer. And he said it would work. The only flaw in his vaccine was that it seemed to work with the person who was vaccinated, but if anyone got near them, they got polio. Anyone being around the person who was vaccinated had a major chance of getting the polio from the person they had just vaccinated with the weak virus. So obviously it might have been weak going in, but it didn't stay that way, okay? So they were still doing this. Nothing was said about the effect, nothing. So that went on. Sabin, to this day, Jonas Salk, these people are heroes. Heroes. Oh yeah. None of the truth, not even in any history book, medical book, nothing. They can never be wrong, you see. It's just that we're the ones who can die, all right? So the public still look on them as heroes. Now, here's the next, we'll get up to the present day, don't worry, but I want you to see how we get here, all right? In 1957, after the big debacle of the mass inoculation, okay, Bernice Eddy started working with a woman called Sarah Stewart at the NIH. Okay? Now, Sarah Stewart became an MD eventually. They worked together because, of course, Eddy was isolated. It said they used to sit on the steps of the building and eat their lunches together, you know, like they were persona non grata, looked on as lepers because Bernice Eddy knew enough to blow the whistle. And they discovered together what was called the polyoma, poly meaning many, oma virus. And the polyoma virus produces many types of cancers. That's why it's called polyoma, many types of cancers. Now, when they found that out, Yale tested and confirmed they were right about this virus, okay? That it caused many cancers, all right? They also confirmed that this virus was identical to the simian 40, the SV40 virus. In 1960, I'm doing this because maybe you're taking notes, okay? 1960, Bernice Eddy, the same woman who worked with Sarah Stewart, all right? Bernice Eddy announces this fact. She gives a talk, all right? She gives a talk to the Cancer Society in New York. And she announces this fact, okay? And what happens to her? The National Institute of Health destroys her lab, destroys her work, and destroys her character, assassinates her character for telling the Cancer Society the truth. All right. Another guy, Dr. Maurice Hillman, listened to this talk. And he does a little work on the polio vaccine, and he suspects it. So what he does, he wants to make sure that it's the vaccine. So he decides he's not going to use the monkeys from where they usually get the monkeys. Because when they bring these monkeys back to test them, the monkeys sort of live together. They all get mixed up. They all contain all kinds of viruses. He said, this time I'm going to be sure. So he got his monkeys from a completely separate place and had them delivered to a separate airport, brought to his lab. And he said, I'm going to find out for sure now what happens with this virus, okay? So he has a bunch of clean, what you call clean monkeys, never been around the virus, never been around any other group of monkeys. He injects clean African green monkeys with the vaccine. They all get cancer, every last one of them. All right? There was nothing in the news, not a bloody word, not that he didn't talk about it. Nothing in the news. And then, of course, I remember reading a book by a Dr. Gallo in the 80s. And his whole book was based on the fact, he called it, that this business, this SB40, came from the green monkey. And the green monkey was the cause of AIDS. Right. This was Gallo in the 80s. He knew better. And so instead of telling the truth, that these poor monkeys were injected with the vaccine and ended up with cancers, he turned it around and said these monkeys already had the SV40 virus and they were the cause of AIDS. More drivel, okay? And his book sold very well. I mean, I bought it. I read it. And then I talked to my doctor, who was one of those few doctors who really had a brain. And he said, no, Sydney, it doesn't come from that at all. And but he didn't know much more at that point, but he knew it didn't come from any green monkey. So that book I threw out. That was Dr. Gallo. So now we come up to 1961. So this is when she gives the talk. Bernice Eddy, they should have a memorial to her, a statue, and to Stewart. Okay, and Stewart, because they always worked together, told the truth and was destroyed. Destroyed. Her work, her reputation, everything. Her notes, gone. 1961. Now, in 1961, Bernice Eddy's colleague, it wasn't Stewart, but another colleague of hers, published an article saying that there is SV40 virus in the polio vaccine. Eddy confirmed the article and said, not only that, but it crosses the species barrier. It crosses the species barrier. So, SV40 crosses the species barrier. So right away, as soon as she said that, they all knew. They all knew it had gotten into every human being that had that vaccine. It crosses the species barrier. So the whole industry at that point, the big cancer industry knew. Not only that, but the people who first discovered it said, you are going to have, people that were around Sauk at the time in Sabin, said, you know what? We are going to have the biggest epidemic of cancers in the coming years, and basically tissue cancers. We are going to have an epidemic of them from this vaccine. Yes, okay? And as soon as that happened, they knew. And did they do anything? Did they say anything? Not a goddamn thing, okay? The cancer industry is almost as big as the banks today, or almost as big as religion. You know, maybe it's number 3. So they confirmed that. And then the NIH, who destroyed Bernice Eddy, the National Institute for Health. And you have to ask, whose health? And there's your answer right there, okay? National Institute, and this is what they said. This is what they said, the usual bullshit. As George Carlin says, it's bullshit and it's bad for you, okay? They said, future vaccines would be free of SV40. Yes. Too late. Too late. But this is, they had to say it. What else could they say? Okay? Future vaccines, no SV40. Oh, how can they guarantee that? Okay? They can't. They cannot. They're all liars. And they're all making money off killing people. So And so they said, now, they agreed, after saying that one statement, they agreed with this guy here, Sabin. I don't know what happened to Sauk. Maybe he just disappeared and, paying atonement or something. He might have been an honest person, who knows. But this guy and the NIH agreed. Now, this is what they agreed. And this is what they feed to you every time they don't give you any facts. This is what they agreed, okay? They, the NIH and Sabin, were afraid to announce the future epidemic of cancers. They didn't want to announce that. And they said, when they said why, they agreed. They had to protect the public from panic. Wait, how many times do they say that when they don't want to tell us anything? How many times? We have to protect the public from panic. Oh, no. You know what that's called? You know what that's called? CYA. Cover your ass. They do it all the time. It's CYA. What do you think the public would have done? It's not about protecting the public. No, no. Protecting themselves from the people with the pitchforks. Coming up to, from the village up to the bloody monster's castle. That's what they want to protect from. So they agreed, we won't say another word. Now, where does that leave us? Where does it leave us? All right? Now, it's even worse, all right? We will go into eventually what happens, because this is a bioweapon. When we get to the assassinations of Kennedy and other presidents who tried to get their own honest money, because that's not the end of the story, okay? That is not the end of the story. Let's put it this way. The cancer industry, I told you when I covered it up, when she made that speech, okay, to the cancer industry in 1960, they didn't let out a word of it. And what are they doing now? Everybody, 1 in 2 people now has some kind of a cancer, all right? And what are they doing? They are getting funding now it's hockey. It's street hockey. They have gone through every dance, every sport, every race, bicycles, races, running, dancing, swimming, hockey, to raise money to conquer cancer. They have got millions put into advertisements that are on all day, and they have not said one word about how all this epidemic got started. Not just the environment. So we're coping with the vaccines, other kinds now that have even worse viruses in them, trust me. Every vaccine, now they want to give it to babies. They're giving hepatitis vaccines. A hepatitis is for people who live on the streets and have all kinds of sex with everybody, but they're giving it to newborn babies, the hepatitis vaccine. These are sick, sick, murderous people. And they're doing it for gain. The cancer institutes, the cancer industry. Everybody lives in total fear every day. They get up every morning. They hear it on the news. They hear it everywhere. They've got marathons. I don't want to swim or jump or run for cancer. I do not want to do that, and I will not pay for a goddamn daffodil. No. I want the environment cleaned up, and I want some goddamn truth out there. These people are criminals. It's a huge industry. And they're constantly asking the public for money. The breast cancer, they've got ribbons. I saw T-shirts. They have got T-shirts with breast cancer in letters all over for the men, the women. It's like it's something good that they're selling. It's on the t-shirts. You pay for those. This is so sick and so stupid and so greedy. And people are believing it. So now to get on with what's actually happening, we have to go up to around 1964. Okay? To get to what eventually became of this, I could rub this off now, right? We have to go up to 1964. Now, Kennedy, of course, was murdered in 1963. And in Dallas. And at the same time as this was happening to him, all right, we have to do some of this now. It won't interfere with the assassination thing, but we have to know we're coming up to 64. In fact, it was going on long before that. Okay, now, we've got this vaccine. It causes cancer. Now, instead of throwing this stuff out, there's still enough left because they were using it till the 90s. Now, this Dr. Ochsner comes back into the picture again. They're wanting to go into Cuba. They keep trying to kill, what's his name, Castro. And because they know about this virus, Ochsner, of course, was right in the thick of it and knew exactly how bad it was. So he's all for this. And what happens in 63, 64, and just before that, they get a bright idea. They know the vaccine has the cancer, the SV40 in it. So what do they want to do with it? They think about Castro, and they're trying to kill him by various means. They had exploding cigars, they tried to poison his food, they did it all. But he had, the people around him were smart. Everyone in Cuba has a PhD. They get free education. They all have PhDs. You'll never win a game of chess in Cuba. No. So Ochsner, they set up this little lab. And he promises this Dr. Mary Sherman, okay, I think it's at Tulane Medical Center. That's near New Orleans. They want to experiment with this SV40. And they're thinking, if only, they know it causes cancer, but can it cause a fast cancer? Can it cause a cancer within a couple of months? So what they do is they set up a lab, and in the lab they have a particle accelerator, okay? And they do experiments. And Dr. Mary Sherman, I don't know whether she knows what the end result or why they're doing it. They get the particle accelerator and they mutate the SV40 by using the particle accelerator in different ways, different amounts, different strengths. They're doing this with a particle accelerator. Now, we don't really know if they succeeded, but we do in a way, because at the same time that they were planning on getting a really fast cancer going to fix Castro, the whole business with Kennedy was going on. And Oswald, in the meantime, was a counteragent and was going back to Bobby Kennedy, telling him what was going on down there, what the plans they had for Kennedy. So Oswald, who said, I'm just the patsy, was reporting to Bobby Kennedy, who was Attorney General. That's what he was down there doing. Never had a hand in any, whatever it was, Oswald. And Oswald knew a guy called Ferry. I think it was Sherman used to call him the ferret, or ferret face, whatever, because that's what he looked like. He had no eyebrows. He was a real weirdie. And he had all kinds of lab rats that he experimented on. He was helping out with this SV40, seeing how fast he could grow this cancer. So what happened when Kennedy was killed and Oswald was taken in and killed by Ruby, Ruby ends up in jail. They inoculate him in jail. Within 3 months, he dies of cancer. So it worked. They did make this cancer faster. They inoculated Ruby. 3 months later, he dies of the cancer. 3 months. He knew too much, he had to go. Oswald was shot. He gets the cancer. And so he doesn't have any more news for Bobby Kennedy. But the particle accelerator, and it didn't work with Castro. They had big plans for him, but they couldn't get it over there. But what happened was this Dr. Mary Sherman was testing the monkeys, using the monkeys, and she was using this particle accelerator to make that virus really fast. You can do that. It was working. They tested it on Ruby. So she must have come up to a point where she said, well, look, now I don't know whether she actually died. I think she died after Kennedy was killed. Did she not? Yes. So at some point, this Dr. Mary Sherman must have said to Ochsner, remember Ochsner, this dreadful Dr. Ochsner, another greedy, he was like Fishbein. It was all greed and ego. She must have said to Ochsner, she must have caught on to what all this was for at some point. And she must have said to him, well, you know what? I don't really want to do this. And they found her in her lab, or in her home, not the lab. They moved her after she was dead. Somebody in the lab, while she was working on the accelerator, which is a very dangerous machine. You can't go in front of it. You have to be very careful. They obviously pushed her in front of it, and when she was found in her apartment, not in the lab, the whole side of her body was just like it was, you could see ribs. Everything was gone. Disappeared. The arm right down to the ribs, you could see through everything. From the particle accelerator that she was using to make this virus so fast that you could be dead in 3 months. And that's, you have no idea what they're doing now with these vaccines. The vaccines contain, and I think you've got it on your next to last sheet there, when I list everything that's in a vaccine, but they don't tell you about the viruses. Do you understand me? They don't mention those. You can have many, many viruses in a vaccine. They're telling you, well, they're not telling you, someone else is. Besides the ethyl mercury, the aluminum, phenol, formaldehyde, antifreeze, foreign RNA and DNA, animal DNA, whatever, and they're all carcinogens, and now they have nanotechnology which goes right through your brain, blood-brain barrier. That's what you get in a vaccine, not including the viruses. Now, this is how this SV40 ended up. And God knows where they got the results of what Dr. Mary Sherman did, because they killed her. She could have come up with the SV40 virus that could have you dead in a week. We do not know to this day, and she is dead. And of course, all her work would have been taken away, all her notes, whatever. So what they're planning on doing with these, what they're planning and what they're doing now, as I said, way back, well, this is way back here, when Pasteur got his germ theory, okay? Pasteur, and it was all about the big bad germ, okay? They still didn't realize that if you have a good immune system, it doesn't matter. You could be dumped into a garbage bin, surrounded with all kinds of germs, head to toe, buried in it. If your immune system is working, you will come out of that without getting anything. But they don't want you to know that to this day. They want you to be afraid of the germs, the germs. So what they want to do now, the whole move behind the vaccines is to destroy your immune system and destroy it as early as possible. That's why they're giving them to children. You cannot give a child a vaccine when it is so young. Your immune system develops as you get older. And every time you come across another virus and you've conquered that one, your immune system has more antibodies. It's filed away. Oh yeah, I know that germ. I've done that one. And your immune system grows and grows and gets an even bigger bunch of antibodies for almost anything. That's how it's supposed to go. They are giving vaccines, useless and harmful vaccines, to babies, to children. They're killing off their immune systems. They're making them weak so that when they send out a pandemic, that's it for you. You cannot do anything unless you have weakened a person's immune system. And that's what the vaccines are about. They will never tell you that. They will never tell you anything. They won't even tell you, look at this history. There is no history of any vaccine saving so much as one life. In fact, they are bioweapons, and if you give them to a young child, and the younger the child, the more destructive they are to that immune system. And so it's a combination. It's a combination. If you know where the WHO comes from, I think I put a note down here to where it comes from. But anyway, it was started up by Rockefeller. And what was Rockefeller into? Eugenics. Euthanasia and eugenics. That was Rockefeller back in the 30s. They own the WHO. They own the NIH. So now the game is, these people aren't dying fast enough. We can make a lot more money, and they'll die a lot faster if we put out these vaccines and we use them on small children. Children first. And then we make it compulsory. Then we can even say the kid can't go to school unless he's vaccinated. Mandatory vaccines are murder in the first degree. That is what they are. You're invading a person's body with poisons, and the shock is horrible. In real life, you don't have to deal with 10 different germs, viruses at once, usually one at a time. But when they give a child a vaccine, or anybody, but children the worst, and that system is soaking up in an instant all these poisons I just listed here, plus a lot of viruses, they don't tell you what they are. the immune system, especially of a child, just throws up its hands in horror and says, I can't cope. This is too much. This is not like real life. They give you an overwhelming amount of poisons at one time. And that's what happens. You will get your children will get all kinds of diseases. All kinds of them, because your system, your whole neurological system is attacked. Your brain is attacked. It goes past the brain-blood barrier. They're using nanotechnology in these vaccines. This is murder. Indeed, it is murder. If the child isn't debilitated, it will die, and now they've changed the law. You can't even sue them. So I'm saying the effect of all this poison in one needle at one time to anyone, but especially a child, it just destroys the immune system, the neurological system. That's it. That is murder. I'm sorry, it's murder. Whether you die in 10 years, 5 years, or you're blinded, or you're in a wheelchair, it's murder in the first degree, and they're all working on that. That's what a vaccine is. And they won't dare tell you the history of the vaccines. They will not do that. Never. You won't hear it anywhere. And what is the first rule of medicine? First, do no harm. That's gone. Forget it. We don't have that anymore. We have got a bunch of greedy psychopaths who bribe the so-called health institutes, the cancer institutes. It's disgusting, and they will destroy anybody who tells the truth about it. That's what we have got here. And so your children are in danger, and the WHO can announce compulsory vaccines. Yes, they can announce that. They can do it. They have the money to do it. So at some point in your life, in the next decade, if you have children or even yourself, you're going to find your back against the wall about these vaccines. You will have to learn every legal aspect of what is going on here, because that law in the States has passed. No matter what they do to you, you cannot sue them. You cannot touch the big drug companies. They work hand in glove with the NIH and the WHO. That's been proven over and over and over. And that is what we're up against. We're up against a huge depopulation effort, but at the same time to make billions from the depopulation, escape from any consequences of doing it, and make us believe that it's for our good. Do you see that's why you need propaganda. Everything you hear from an advertisement, a billboard on a bus, a TV show. What is television for? I haven't used my set in years except for DVDs. The television is, and they will admit this to you, it's not about the shows. Even though they might fool you and say, oh, Discovery, oh, you'll get the truth. No, you won't. They have the best lie. The best lie is the one that's almost true. That's what they do. That's the best propaganda, the lie that is almost true, and you will believe it. Well, maybe not someone in this class, but most people, yes. So they will admit to you if you're talking to them, because I did work on Madison Avenue for a while, and they will say, it's not about the shows, it's about the commercials. Television is to sell. We don't care what show. If they want realism, if they want The Bachelor, whatever inane gobbledygook they want to watch, we'll let them as long as they listen to our commercials. This class on propaganda is the only one in North America. Yes, I've been told that by a professor in England who has a class studies in propaganda there. And I saw one of his DVDs. And he said, no, I'm the only one in England. I don't know, it could be all of Europe. They do not want any studies of propaganda, please. This is the best weapon they have. If they can make you believe what they're telling you, the propaganda, you will fall in love with the tortures, the torment, and the way they're killing you. You will like it. You will reason that this is how it is. They care about me. And that's what they want to do. Propaganda is not just it's to make people willing. It's to gain their trust. Propaganda is not like force. No. Anyone can object to force. Even a 2-year-old. You're not going to spank me, blah, blah, blah. But propaganda is to make you trust the person telling you this garbage. It's about selling you ideas, whatever, from things to ideas. It's about selling. It's about giving you guilt, fear. It's like religion in a way. Yes, it is. That's propaganda too. Make you feel guilty, fearful. Oh, if it's not guilt, it'll be fear. Or it's greed. You'll get so much money. You'll be successful. Let me tell you how to get rich. Well, the only way he's getting rich is selling tickets to his drivel. That's how he's getting rich, but he's not going to tell you that. So this is what's happening now. Now it's affecting our lives, life and death. If we believe the propaganda, we will sacrifice our children, ourselves, everything. Let me tell you another fact. The people who do get cancer and do not use chemotherapy live 4 times longer. Doesn't matter what kind of cancer they have. They are killing you, poisoning you with chemicals, and then it's like a wheel, and then you get the cancer, and what do? You go back and you get more chemicals to kill you again. So you can suffer in your last days. And these are the people who call themselves health institutes. The World Health Organization. They are planning the pandemics so that you, with your weakened immune system, you can't withstand the pandemics, and anyone who takes vaccines, they will be ill or die very early. And they have said, and I heard it on 680 News, and I wrote it down. This is what was quoted. The next generation will not be as smart, and they will not live as long. They know that, and that's what they're working towards. So what I'm saying is, it may be a little depressing to learn how evil these people are. They could have thrown out all those batches that had SV40, could they not? They didn't. They used it right up until the 90s, and they knew that people were going to have an epidemic of cancers. And the cancer industry is a huge, huge industry. Billions and billions of dollars, and have we gotten any closer? No, it's worse. 1 in 2 now. It's worse and worse and worse. Have they cleaned up the environment? No. So and they know this. In fact, the DuPonts who made all the Teflon, years and years ago, they had their own organic garden. They wouldn't eat the crap, all the pesticide-ridden food they were putting out there. No. No. They know what they are doing. They are not stupid. They think we are. They have nothing but contempt because we believe them. If your kids have had any vaccines, then I've got here, I hate having ain't it awful classes without solutions. So I'm just telling you a couple of things you can do to waylay some of this. Okay, I've got a little menu here. What you have to do to live past this, all right? vitamin C is so important. Now I'll tell you why. Vitamin C is the only vitamin that humans can't make, but most animals, except for, what are the animals that don't make C? A bat or something?
Guinea pig and bat.
A guinea pig and a bat. But every other animal will manufacture its own vitamin C. Now, vitamin C is an antioxidant that destroys poisons in the body. It's not just for colds. So because we don't make it, we have to take up to 4,000, between 2 and 4,000 milligrams of C every day. In the morning, not at night, or it could keep you awake. It's an energy vitamin. Especially, this is not the old days like grandfather lived on a farm, no poison air, no pesticide, no GMO, okay? This is now. Wakey, wakey. We are beating off chemicals every day of our lives. We are breathing in chemtrails. We've got the vaccines, we've got the dirt in the air, we've got the GMO foods, the nanotech. Our bodies are being waylaid by this stuff. So you have to do something about it. You need vitamin A. Your body can store this. So don't take more than, with A, 25,000 units a day. I've done that for years. I was fine. And the other one is beta carotene. That's like vitamin A, but it doesn't stay in your system, so you can take even more. So 25,000 of beta carotene every day after a meal, please. You can't take them on an empty stomach. Take them after your breakfast. Then you need liquid B vitamins, the complex. Liquid, you can get it. Liquid Bs, the whole complex, not just one or two. You can't do that. Liquid Bs every day in your drink at breakfast, and you need vitamin E is another antioxidant. Now, with vitamin E, please do this. You'll ensure a bit longer time here, unless you're fed up and you want to go. But vitamin E, you have to start with 200 units. Okay, and 3 months at 200, then you can go to 400, and then you should end up with 800 units a day. It will oxygenate your cells. Your cells have to have oxygen, and you're fighting off all this crap they're loading on you. And of course, you've got to have the omega oils. Okay, the fish oils. You have to have that. And they have three. They have the 369. You can get this stuff in any health store. Please, get it. And you will see it makes a difference. It does make a difference. And I also get what is called liquid. I get the liquid trace minerals. Liquid trace minerals. Just ask for them. You want a liquid. Especially when you're older or you don't absorb them, minerals. You have to do that every day. And instead of eating a lot of crap and fast foods with flour, grease, and sugar, please, sugar is a killer. If you want a little bit of honey and tea, fine. But sugar, cancer loves sugar. Cancer thrives on sugar. Remember that. And when you eat white flour, white dough, cakes, dessert, white flour, your body treats it as if it's sugar because it is. It's starch, starch, starch. The only sugar you should have is fresh fruit, maybe a little honey now and then. But you need like 4 or 5 small protein meals. But sugar loves, your body, the cancer just loves sugar. Do not do it. That's what you don't eat that's going to help, okay? I'm not saying don't have your birthday cake, like I'm not a fanatic. But get herbal teas. No, there's herbal teas. Don't take any damn pills. There's herbal teas to help you sleep, for this, that, the other. Just go into the herbal stuff. And don't take any of their goddamn pills because they will hurt you. So that's the story of the vaccines.